For whatever reason, I am captivated by pigs. I've raised all kinds of different animals, but to me, the pig is the most beautiful and exciting animal. I don't know why, but I sure do like pigs. So, my talk today is going to be a little bit less production specific. My finding is that it's really awesome to come and learn new production techniques. But what's going to make you succeed as farmers, you can get a lot of production techniques off of YouTube. You watch 60 minutes of YouTube videos a week, you're going to get an education. You know, if you take notes and you write them down, you take it seriously, take your education seriously, you're going to gain something. But you know what? What do we do when there's something that we're not excited about? We drag our feet, we find an excuse, we find something else. Oh, I'd rather be doing chores than learning something about QuickBooks, you know? But guess what? You know, learning 3 new techniques for farming after you've studied it for a while isn't going to be the make it or break it, and having some amount of business skill will. So here's just a couple of farming jokes that you may have heard. You know, I saw a cartoon that had 2 farmers standing out in a field, and one of them says, "Larry, I hear you won the lottery." And he says, "Sure did." And the other guy says, "What are you going to do with all that money?" And he says, "Well, I guess I'll just keep farming until it's all gone." And another one that goes along with that is, you all know how to make a small fortune farming is you start out with a big one. Okay? So, you know, there's a reason. There's a truth there. And that's the dangerous thing, because we all love to farm, you know, being your own boss, working with creation, working with the earth is part of, you know, our American dream. And it turns out that beyond the exciting elements of production, which are important, but beyond those exciting elements of producing the food, knowing how to manage a business is what's going to keep you in farming 5 years, 10 years down the road. Because, I mean, let's be honest, farming is more about being a small business person. Farming is about being an entrepreneur. So what I'm saying is, let's just be careful with the romance part. Let's keep it, let's enjoy it, let's give it its proper place, and at the end of the day, you are all additionally small business people. So we close our eyes for a second and we say, what are the qualities of a person who's starting a carpet store? What are the qualities of a person who's starting a grocery store or a tire shop or any kind of small town business? What are the qualities that are going to make that person succeed? And then that's what you need to go and study. Okay? So turning your passion into a paycheck. Here we go. This is my family. Noah and Mary are my children. You can probably tell which one is which. That's me and my wife Holly. This is a pond that we graze cattle and pigs around. So, simplified blueprint to agricultural happiness. All right? We take soil health. This is a non-negotiable. Okay? We also got life goals. For a surprising number of farmers, they don't make it to the table. Right? We want to manage for a high quality of life. Okay, we don't want to forget about the quality of life. We want to manage for a high quality of life. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick strategies that link soil health, sequestering carbon, creating armor on the surface, all the things we've all heard from Gabe Brown say on YouTube. We're going to take those things and we're going to pick strategies. So here's a couple of points that I want everybody to remember. One, are you relying on physical strength as your chief tool in the toolbox? You know, we all start out as young men or women, and I don't know what it is, but something changes. 25 years later, we're not young men and young women anymore, and we may think to ourselves, I wish I would have created a system that didn't depend exclusively on endurance, but rather skill, observation, listening to the earth, listening to the land around you. So check that out and ask yourself, how important is physical strength and endurance in your operation? And what I think we should do is we should minimize it. That's the long-term strategy. All right, so also, I'm going to give you a funny example of how we started out farming. You never start out knowing everything, and by the time you're done, you still don't, but hopefully you gained enough that it's smoothed out a little bit. So, story of one pig. There's several communities close to where I live in North Missouri, and one day one of them told me they wanted to buy a pig. And I said, you know, when you're first starting out, you don't say no to anything. You don't say no to anybody. And I said, okay, great, we're going to get you that one pig. So we pulled a livestock trailer out into the field. We tried to corral this pig. The pig busts the fence down, goes running away. We spend all day chasing it, finally get him trapped in our firewood room. We back the trailer up to the door of the firewood room, build an elaborate series of pallets trying to stop the pig from running away. I tell my friend Brady, I'm like, Brady, I'm going to go into the firewood, back door. I'm going in the back door. I'm going to scare that pig towards you. You just stand your ground, hold these pallets. The pig's going to come tearing out the door, run onto the livestock trailer. We're going to close the door. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to take you out for ice cream when we're done. My little girl, Mary, she was, I believe, 3 years old at the time, and she's standing about 20 feet away. Brady says, great, you know, what can go wrong, right? So I go in, chase the pig out. The pig runs the pallets and Brady over without slowing down. My little girl runs away screaming, arms up over her head. That's the only sane reaction to witnessing that. And it took us the rest of the day to catch the pig. And then we drove that one single animal 45 minutes to a processing plant and waited to get our check for $250, you know. So that is an example of, we were doing pretty good things for soil health. Soil health was benefiting from the way we were grazing our pigs. Life goals means that you find out how much money you're going to spend in a month, then you're going to find out what your net profit is per animal, you're going to find out how many animals you need to sell that month, or seasonally, or whatever your process is. So what I just gave is a kind of funny example. You made the soil health thing, kind of forgot about the life goals thing, and then did a pretty good job hitting the bullseye on the wrong target. All right, that's a Joel Salatin quote. I kind of like that one. So we got the whole pig sold, but we didn't actually create a living wage for ourselves. And in not creating a living wage, I had a very time-consuming and satisfying hobby. So I'm going to go, we've only got 25 minutes, so I'll go through this kind of quick. So start with the end in mind. In order to have life goals, you kind of have to know what they are. And as much as I like farming, there's a lot of non-farming things I like to do. I like to read books, I like to go fishing, I like to go see movies, I like to sit in a hammock and do nothing sometimes. So those things, if they influence your quality of life, they need to be written down somewhere. You need to have a bullseye that you can aim at. If you don't have a bullseye that you can aim at, it's pretty hard to hit it. So we start with the end in mind. Just define what that is. I was talking to Jenny Harris from White Oak Pastures on the phone once, and I said, what was the big changes at White Oak Pastures? And she says, well, we started out as just a whole bunch of cowboys, and then we took on vegetable garden, and then we were a bunch of cowboys, and then we were gardeners. And then we grew past that, and we had some pigs, we had some chickens, we had some graphic designers, we had some marketers, we had some bookkeepers, we had a bunch of maintenance people. She said, we went from being a small number of struggling farmers to a larger number of middle-class farmers. And really, what does our country need? Our country doesn't need 100,000 more struggling, poverty-stricken farmers, all right? We need more middle-class farmers, and the way to do that is, in my small experience, I don't know that farmers think big enough. And that's up to everybody how to define that and work with that. But at some point, you may need to move past simple local sales. We may move to wholesaling or internet sales. Currently, our farm produces sausage, bratwurst, bacon, lard, and snack sticks. Many of those things we have on Amazon, many of those things we have on our own website, many of those things we private label because I recognize that my strengths are in production and sales, but a little bit less in the marketing piece. So we will make use of marketing agencies. We don't pay them. We private label a product, sell it to them, and then I use freezer trucks to move it to their distribution center. And it sounds complicated. I can explain it to y'all some other time if you want me to. It's not as complicated as it sounds. But the question is, when you retail, you get the whole thing, but are you good at the steps necessary to find those people? And it turns out I wasn't. I was real good at production. I was real good at sales. I had to find medium-scale retailers that then I am a medium-scale wholesaler, and we connect there. Does that make sense? So that's one of the ways that we have increased our volume. One more question I like to ask. Are you a full-time production farm, or are you a homestead farm? And one's not better than the other, but I noticed that a lot of people would enjoy homestead farming in which their paycheck, college education for their kids, and retirement is not linked to their agricultural efforts. And I was a homestead farmer for a long time. Now we're a full-time production farm, but that was a line that we had to cross if we wanted to get bigger. So that's a question to just mull over in your heart. Okay, get a coach. Something magical does happen when you talk. You know, you get some great idea. You got a buddy. Doesn't have to be anybody in the industry. Just got a buddy. You can just start spilling your guts. You know, set something up where you talk to them. Tell them what you're excited about and concerned about, and try to figure out how to get to the bullseye that you want to hit. And sometimes I have had an idea that bounces around my head for about 2 weeks, and I'm just like stars in my eyes. I think this is going to be a great idea. And I don't know if y'all have had this experience. And then you pull your buddy aside and you're like, hey, Dave, let me tell you this great idea. And you say it, and as soon as it gets out of your head, you're like, that is a terrible idea. That is never going to work. Or you find some limitation. That happens a lot, and you can save yourself some hassle by getting your buddy Dave instead of a $200 an hour business consultant to listen. So I like to have a written plan. There are several reasons for having a written plan. One of them that I keep on circling back on is that it's hard to hit a bullseye that is ill-defined. It's like shooting at dusk. You know, you don't really want to do that. Another reason is that we all start out our farm businesses as a generalist. We start out wearing every hat. And that is a good foundation, but a bad tip of the pyramid, right? So my goal as a farmer is definitely to start out, I'm going to wear every hat for maybe the first year or two. Beyond that, though, there are certain things which each one of us are good at and not good at. For example, with our snack stick business, before we scaled up, I was doing all the fulfillment myself. So we would have another company, a USDA inspected meat processing plant, make our snack sticks. I'd go get them, bring them home. We set up a merchant account with UPS, and then I got a million little cardboard boxes and labels and tape and a scale, and I'd do this whole thing about filling boxes and adding this cute little note. Thanks for supporting our family farm. A lot of those things were great, but you have to hand those things off. I really don't know that I want to wear more than 3 hats on any given day. Because if you start wearing 7 or 8 hats, if you're doing your fulfillment, if you're doing all your own processing, if you're washing your own eggs, if you're doing your own marketing, you're doing every single step, you make no allowance for the economy of scale. The economy of scale is real. So if you can do the things that you're good at, you'll be so much faster. You'll be so much more efficient. And as a result, you'll make more money. And that is a good thing. So when we have a written plan, we can have each one of the action steps that's happening on a given day on a piece of paper. You can put a star next to the ones you like. You can say, okay, you can put a red check mark next to the ones like, oh, whenever it's time for me to do bookkeeping, oh, do I drag my feet? And that's when I go out and got to go fix some fence. That's when there's something comes up. Time to go do dishes. I don't have time for this bookkeeping stuff, right? Well, that's when you know how to delegate, and that's the next one. But before we move on to delegating, I like to bring up the idea of high beams and low beams. You know, you're in your car, you got high beams and low beams. The bigger your to-do list on a given day, the more you're going to have your mind set on low beams, short term, kind of watching your feet take each step forward because you got a lot of stuff to do. Okay? The more you can get it up onto the high beams, the more that you can strategize, the more you can delegate, and the faster you'll succeed in farming. Success being defined as enjoying it, making a living wage. Okay, so comfortable with delegating. If you have a business that you want to get a living wage from, you'll have to delegate. Who's really good at delegating? Who likes to delegate? Who likes to ask people to do things? I kind of like to ask people to do things. A lot of people don't like to ask people to do things. But I think for myself, if I'm going to grow my snack stick company to a large enough size to get a retirement fund out of, I'm going to have to hand off the bookkeeping and the accounting, the taxes. I'm going to hand off the fulfillment, the meat processing. We've recently hired an office manager, and I find I am very slow at paperwork. And there's no shortage of paperwork being a wholesaler. You know, coordinating freezer trucks, moving stuff around, getting a certificate of analysis for certain meats to be, you know, laboratory tested, making up a BOL, that's the paperwork that goes on the freezer truck with a pallet of meat. All of those things, I don't enjoy that much. I want to do the things that I'm good at, and that's production and sales. So, delegating is a task that's very important to me. Okay, know which way your farm is trending. You know, this is an important one. When I do chores, I like to see more than one good thing happen from each action step that I take. So when I do chores, basically what chores amounts to on a pasture-raised pig farm is, so we have a large run. Our full grain pigs, we have several experiments going on at any time. Our full grain pigs have a run that's 300 feet by 150 feet, single hot wire, 18 inches off the ground, run it hot as lightning. Don't feel bad if you see the lightning bolt strike them in the dark. Okay, that's how hot you want it. Okay, they will learn. They are smart. Okay, what we do is we have shade structures or rain structures, and to protect them depending on the season. And every single day, our shade structure gets moved 30 feet forward. We built, greenhouse shade cloth on top of a hay wagon. It's kind of a contraption, really, but it works great. We can move that 30 feet forward every day, and the animals are going to impact a different spot. Twice a day, we move their feeders forward. So if we imagine a rectangle, 300 by 150, and all the elements, food, water, and shelter, are all moving forward at a speed of 30 feet a day, we get the manure evenly distributed, we get the grass trampled. There's a lot of ratios that go along with grass farming. We may say go for 60% consumed, 30% trampled, 10% left standing. That's a great one for cows. I reverse that a little bit for pigs. I'll do 60% trampled, 30% consumed, 10% left standing. So what's happening is we're having positive animal impact. We could have a whole talk or a whole series of talks about positive animal impact, but what we're doing is we're protecting the soil, all the heavy lifting that comes from developing fertility, developing all the good things, the microbiology that's alive under the soil, its ability to produce more grass and clover next year. All those things are happening spectacularly well. Pigs and wigs. It's just a coincidence that it says pigs in it. So I had a friend who I was talking to. This goes back to the get a coach, get a mentor kind of thing. Kind of informal, friendship kind of coaching thing. And I was telling him, his name's Adam Campbell. I was like, Adam, listen to all these great ideas. And then I just unload, 15 ridiculous, colorful, and exciting farm ideas. We're going to have ducks over here, and we're going to have apple trees, and this is happening, and no-till drills just being pulled by yaks, and it's going to be great. And Adam Campbell says, John, like what you have is pigs. You just gave me 15 pretty important goals. And he says, I'll bet you don't get a single one of them done. And you kind of need a buddy who can say that. Okay? Now he says, alternatively, John, if you go with Wigs, wildly important goals. We're not talking about 15 things that you think are cool. Okay? We're talking about 2 or 3 things that when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, whoa, that is the meaning of everything. That is the coolest thing. That's the most awesome thing I can imagine. So wildly important goals, when you can focus and get your attention set on 2 or 3 things, and you systematically approach learning about those things, looking for help with those things, taking the first steps to execute the beginning of your plan, if you can stick with it for a little while, it is inevitable. You are probably going to succeed in finding the answer. And you may fail several times. I call it failing forward. You may fail several times in that. But you will at least be very satisfied. Okay, can it scale? This is pretty important. A lot of my early day kind of farming ideas were totally unscalable. So for a while I thought, well, gosh, North Missouri is a great place to live, but where I live, there aren't hardly any people. The cows outnumber the people. Kind of tough to sell bacon to a cow. The people who live there are wonderful, wonderful neighbors. They'll never be customers, though. Okay? Reason being is 85% of the 2 counties, I live on the county line between Macon and Adair County, 85% of the population is below the poverty line. So if you're going to try to sell high dollar organic anything, it's going to be uphill. People will have other things that may demand a higher percentage of their money than my farm produce. So my first idea was I didn't know anything about freezer trucks, didn't know anything about FedEx. La Plata, Missouri has an Amtrak stop. It goes to several cities, which will remain nameless, and I went in to the Amtrak Central Station in Chicago once, and I said, guys, I went into the shipping department, I says, I know you guys do some freight, right? And they said, we sure do some freight. And I said, I would like to send frozen meat to your stops because there's buying clubs in cities far away from La Plata. And they said, John, we're gonna say that I'd love to help you with that, and it is totally illegal. So, USDA inspectors, plug your ears for a second. So I did it. Okay? And for a couple of years we supplied buying clubs in other cities. And the idea, while I felt very clever, I was meeting many goals, it was like planting an apple tree in a 5-gallon bucket. Okay? It's receiving my time, it's receiving my energy, it's not going anywhere. It's career suicide. Okay? So, that was a startling revelation to me, and I like to put that out there to everybody. This tree on the right, this is an idea that was planted in a way that can grow. The idea I just explained could not grow. Here's an idea that might grow. Okay? It is, in my mind, selling exclusively at farmers markets. Direct market sales is a beautiful thing, and there are so many more people in St. Louis who go to the grocery store than go to the farmer's market. I used to bring chickens into St. Louis, and I remember thinking, well, gosh, there's 3 or 4 other guys, each one's maybe raising 500 chickens and bringing them to St. Louis. I started thinking, gosh, the competition's kind of high. Us small-time farmers are bringing some outlandish number, something like 3,000 chickens are coming into St. Louis, right? What are we going to do? This town needs another chicken farmer like it needs a hole in the head. But think about how many chickens are going out of the grocery stores. Would it be in the hundreds of thousands? We're not actually competing with each other. We're competing with a mindset. And that mindset is something that's not going to go away, and we just got to get on the ball with it. And for small farmers, getting their products in front of people we can blow the roof off. How many small farmers could St. Louis support if we were filling the grocery stores? This might be easier said than done, but everything worth doing is. So I expect that we're getting pretty close to the end of my time. Couple of minutes, okay. Retail, went over that. Don't need to do that. Okay, last 2 points, cost versus value. As small-time business people, we all start out putting all of our thought onto cost. Okay, how am I going to save 20 bucks? You know what makes Walmart succeed, not that we need to use them as our role model, but what makes them succeed is they say, how am I going to make 20 bucks? And that way of thinking can be the line between success and failure. We can't go through life exclusively thinking about how to save money. We have to go through life thinking, how am I going to make some money? We need to make money, not just save another $5. And my last point is how many people have a farm? That's beautiful. I love to see that. I love to see that. And this is more of a confession than anything, but when I started out, I was thinking, I'm doing something noble. I'm doing something sustainable. I'm doing something eco-friendly. I'm saving the world in my own mind. I'm going to make a living doing that. Those two things don't go together all the time. If you can tell that story and you can get people on your bandwagon, they do. But in the fact, and I want everyone, this is cautionary, I want everyone to realize just because what you're doing is noble and is helping the earth and is feeding people, there may not be any connection between that and getting a paycheck. Okay, so take that as you will, but all the other things that we talked about, keep on doing all of those noble, nutritious, beautiful, social justice, all those things, but keep in mind that without the skills of a small business person, it may be over in a couple of years. So I wish you a great many years farming.